Have you ever sacrificed everything for someone you loved, only for them to betray you in the most brutal way? What would you do if the person you built your entire world around handed it over to someone else, and told you to leave? Would you walk away quietly? Or would you fight for what's yours? Let me know in the comments, would you stay and fight back, or let go and start over? This is the story of how I, Emma Stewart, learned the hard way that love without respect is a trap, and betrayal from the person you trust most cuts deeper than any knife. I was 34 years old when the foundation of my life cracked open. But to understand how it all fell apart, you need to know how it all began. I met Dion Proctor in college, tall, magnetic, and full of charm that seemed to light up any room. He played guitar like he was born with it in his hands and talked about dreams so vividly, it was hard not to believe in them. While other guys bragged about internships and frat parties, Dion painted pictures of future stadium tours, record deals, and life on the road. I fell hard. And fast. Back then, I was studying to become a trauma nurse. My path was practical, disciplined, and grounded in reality. His was all about passion. Fire. Possibility. And I thought, maybe together, we'd balance each other out. After college, life moved quickly. I landed my dream job at a hospital's trauma unit. Long, grueling hours, back-to-back shifts, but it was meaningful work. Dion, meanwhile, was still chasing music. Gigs here and there. Studio time whenever he could afford it. Which, let's be honest, was rare. So I covered the bills. All of them. Rent, groceries, gas, his equipment repairs. I didn't even think twice. I told myself we were a team. That every great artist needed someone to believe in them. I believed in him. For our 5th anniversary, I surprised Dion with something I thought would change everything. A house. It was a 2-story colonial in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city, wraparound porch, tall oak trees, and a tiny recording room I had custom built in the basement. I used nearly all of my savings and signed the deed under my name, since Dion didn't have steady income or credit at the time. I remember watching him walk through the front door the first time, his eyes wide, mouth slightly open, and thinking, this is it. This is the moment where everything changes. He hugged me so tight I thought I'd stop breathing. Whispered in my ear, "You saved me, Em. You really did." And in that moment, I felt like I had made the right decision. We made that house a home. I would come back after 12-hour ER shifts to the smell of Dion's half-burnt dinner experiments. Some nights we'd collapse on the couch, my head in his lap, his fingers playing with my hair as he hummed new melodies. I thought we were building something sacred, love, a future, a family. But little by little, cracks began to show. It started with the band. Rhett Rivers, Dion's best friend and bandmate, was always crashing at our place, always promising the next gig would be the big break. They were constantly broke, constantly dreaming. I kept being the only one who woke up to a real alarm clock and went to a real job. Still, I kept supporting them. Then came Kiana. Kiana Edwards was introduced as a marketing consultant helping the band gain exposure. She was gorgeous, smart, and always around. Too around. At first I chalked it up to paranoia. Late-night jam sessions, shared, creative energy, Dion telling me I was working too much to understand the music scene. I tried to ignore the feeling in my gut, the one that told me something wasn't right. Chandler Porter, my best friend and colleague at the hospital, wasn't subtle. He's either using you or he's cheating. Or both. But I wasn't ready to hear it. I defended him. He's just passionate. He's under a lot of pressure. I made excuses like women in love always do. Because when you've invested your money, your heart, your time, and your future into someone, admitting they might be betraying you feels like admitting you were wrong about everything. But I wasn't wrong about everything. I was just wrong about him. What happened next wasn't just betrayal. It was cruelty masked as entitlement. And it forced me to make a choice, lose everything I'd worked for, or take back what was mine, no matter how much it hurt. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button and turned on notifications, because trust me, you don't want to miss what Dion did next. I wish I could tell you the betrayal came out of nowhere. That it blindsided me one random afternoon. But the truth is, it crept in slowly. Like a shadow growing longer at the end of the day, swallowing the light until you don't realize you're in the dark. The signs were there. They always are. It started with the phone. Dion had always been careless with it, leaving it face up, unlocked, playing music, scrolling through memes. We used to share everything. He'd laugh at random texts from Rhett, send me goofy voice notes while I was on shift, sometimes even ask me to respond to messages while his hands were full. But then, it changed. The screen always faced down. He carried it with him, even to the bathroom. He started locking it with a passcode. When I asked why, he shrugged. Privacy, babe. Nothing personal. But it was personal. The energy between us started to shift. Cold shoulders. Distant replies. Late-night rehearsals that stretched into early mornings. I'd call him at midnight after a double shift, no answer. No texts back until the next afternoon. When I asked where he'd been, he'd say, the studio. You know how it is. We were in the zone. The we changed too. It wasn't Rhett and I anymore. It was Kiana and I. Kiana this. Kiana that. Kiana thinks we should focus more on Spotify playlists. Kiana wants to help shoot a mini documentary about the band. Kiana says I need to stop relying on you and be more independent. I couldn't say anything without sounding insecure. Or jealous. Or unsupportive. But it wasn't just her presence. It was the way he started talking to me, like I was the problem. He began treating my exhaustion like an inconvenience. My job, my schedule, my stress, like it was somehow damaging his creativity. You're always tired. You're never present. You're turning into someone I don't recognize. I remember one night, I had just come home after a brutal shift. A 5-car pileup, 2 deaths on the table, and a teenage girl who looked like my niece begging me not to let her mom die. I was emotionally wrecked. All I wanted was comfort. Familiar arms. Some silence. But Dion was in the kitchen, blasting music and laughing with Kiana, who was draped across my barstool, sipping wine from a glass I had picked out on our anniversary trip. I stood there at the doorway. They didn't even notice I had walked in. When they finally did, Dion looked irritated. Not concerned. Not surprised. Just annoyed. I said, "Can we talk?" He sighed like I'd asked him to move a mountain. We went to the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. My heart, pounding. I asked the question I had avoided for weeks. Are you sleeping with her? His eyes narrowed. Not because he was shocked, but because I dared to ask. He said, "You're paranoid." I didn't respond. You're always at work. Always stressed. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's you, Emma. The audacity in his voice. I felt like I'd been slapped. I stood up. I told him I was done walking on eggshells. That if something was happening, I had a right to know. He walked out of the room mid-sentence, slammed the door, and left for a drive. That night, I sat alone in the house I bought, shaking, crying, staring at our wedding photo. Still hoping, in some twisted way, that I was wrong. But I wasn't. The next morning, I came home early after a shift was cut short. My feet were sore. My scrubs were stained with dried blood. I remember thinking, maybe I'll cook breakfast. Maybe we can talk. I walked into the house and froze. Kiana was sitting on the couch. wearing my robe, drinking my wine. Her bare legs were propped up on the coffee table. Her phone was in one hand, my favorite mug in the other. She didn't flinch when she saw me. Just smiled. "Emma. You're home early." Before I could respond, Dion walked in from the kitchen, shirtless, biting into a slice of toast. He didn't blink either. He looked at me like I was the intruder. He said, flatly, "She's staying here now." Silence. "You should find somewhere else to stay. You're making things toxic." Toxic. The word spun in my head like a cruel joke. I couldn't even speak. My voice caught in my throat. I turned around and walked out the door before I broke down in front of them. I sat in my car for hours. I drove to the hospital parking lot just to feel grounded. I even tried calling my mom, but she didn't answer. Finally, I dialed Chandler. She picked up on the second ring. Within an hour, she had a blanket, a toothbrush, and a key ready. "You're not staying in your car," she said. "Come here. Now." I stayed on her couch that night. And the next. And the next after that. When I went back to the house a few days later to grab my things, the locks had been changed. There was a note taped to the door in Dion's handwriting: "Please respect our space. We'll arrange a time for you to collect your stuff." Our space. My house. That was the moment the fog started to clear. I remembered something important. When I bought the house, Dion didn't qualify for the mortgage. His credit was a mess. His income was inconsistent. Everything had been signed under my name. The mortgage. The deed. The insurance. The equity. Everything. The house, legally, was still mine. They had locked me out of something that didn't even belong to them. And that's when the sadness started to shift into something else entirely. Resolve. They thought I was broken. But I was just getting started. Grief has a way of clouding your vision. But once it clears, even just a little, what's left is clarity. And in my case, a quiet, burning resolve. I had spent years pouring everything I had into a man who didn't just betray me, he erased me. From my own home. From my own story. But I was done being erased. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I got smart. The first thing I did was call Adrian Sanders, a no-nonsense attorney Chandler had once used during a malpractice scare. The moment I sat in his office and laid everything out, he leaned back in his leather chair and raised an eyebrow. "Let me get this straight," he said. "You bought the house. You alone pay the mortgage. You're the only one on the deed, and he locked you out." I nodded. He tapped his fingers together, then smiled. "Well then," he said, "let's get to work." Within an hour, I had legal proof that the house was mine and mine alone. Dion had no stake in it. No legal rights. No claim. No ground to stand on. Adrian drafted a preliminary cease and desist. But I told him to hold off, just for now. I had something else in mind. Because now that I wasn't reacting emotionally, I could see everything for what it really was. A long con. Dressed up in guitar strings and puppy dog eyes. But what Dion didn't know was that I had people in my corner. And they were ready to help me fight. Everly Vincent was one of them, my financial advisor and old college roommate who also happened to have a reputation for being ruthless with numbers. She met me for coffee and listened carefully as I laid everything out. "First," she said, "we need to secure all your accounts." She helped me freeze our joint credit card, close our shared savings, and transfer my funds into a locked personal account that Dion couldn't access. "If he tries to drain you now," she said, "he'll hit a wall." Then came step 2, gathering evidence. Chandler's husband, Arif Rollins, is a tech guy, smart, discreet, and loyal to the bone. I told him what was going on, and he didn't hesitate. "We can still get eyes in there," he said. "But we have to act fast." That night, Ariv and I drove to the house under cover of darkness. I still had my garage opener, and the side door lock hadn't been changed. While Dion and Kiana were at a gig, we slipped inside. My heart was pounding. The air in the house felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else now. But I stayed focused. We installed 3 hidden cameras. One in the living room. One in the kitchen. And one in the hallway just outside the master bedroom. Small. Motion activated. Synced directly to my phone. It felt like a spy movie. But this wasn't fiction. This was my life, my home, and I had every right to know what was happening inside it. What I saw over the next 2 weeks. It changed everything. I watched from Chandler's couch as Dion and Kiana turned my home into their playground. They trashed the kitchen, threw parties, let strangers crash on my couch. I watched Kiana pour red wine on the white carpet I had installed with my Christmas bonus 2 years ago. I watched Dion laugh as he told guests, Emma was always uptight. This place is way more fun now. They mocked me. They impersonated me. Kiana strutted through the hallway in my heels, mocking my voice, pretending to cry, "Dion, how could you do this?" And he laughed. Every second of it, recorded. Every cruel word, documented. But I didn't cry. I just saved the footage. Backed it up 3 times. And waited. Because now, I wasn't just angry. I was ready. Ready to reclaim what was mine. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes, it moves quietly. Through legal channels. Through carefully worded letters. Through security footage and signed deeds. And sometimes, revenge comes with a badge and a clipboard. It was a Thursday afternoon when I walked up the front steps of my house, not alone, but with Adrian Sanders, my lawyer, and 2 uniformed officers at my side. I remember standing at the door, holding the deed in one hand and my heart in the other. The officer knocked. Inside, I could hear music playing. Laughter. Kiana's voice echoing from the kitchen. It felt poetic. A moment later, Dion opened the door, still chewing what looked like a slice of pizza, wearing sweatpants and a smug expression that evaporated the second he saw me standing behind the police. "Emma," he said, blinking. "What is this?" The officer stepped forward. "Sir, this is a legal matter. Are you Mr. Dion Proctor?" Dion nodded slowly, already backing up. "You are hereby being served with an official eviction notice. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises." "What the, eviction? This is my house." Adrian cleared his throat and held up the deed. "Actually," he said, calm and cold, "it's hers. Fully paid for, legally documented. You were never on the mortgage. Never on the title. Never on the insurance. You have no rights to this property." Dion's face changed in an instant, from confusion, to rage, to something like desperation. He stepped toward me. "Emma, babe. Can we talk? Just us?" "No," I said. He reached for my arm. "Come on, Em. We've had our ups and downs, sure, but we can fix this. You're still angry, I get it. But locking me out? That's not you." I looked him in the eye and didn't blink. "You're right. That's not me. But letting someone disrespect me in my own home, that's not me anymore either." Just then, Kiana stormed in from the kitchen, arms crossed and ready to pounce. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "You think you can just walk in here and throw us out?" I raised my phone. On the screen was a paused video clip, her pouring red wine on my carpet and laughing. Her face went pale. "You'll regret this," she snapped. I smiled. "I already did. That's why I'm fixing it." She lunged forward, but Dion held her back. The officers handed over the paperwork, and Adrian gave them a folder full of printed documents, photos, receipts, security footage stills. The officers informed them again, 72 hours. No appeal. No extensions. You need to be out. All of you. Or we'll be back to enforce it. As they slammed the door, I turned and walked down the front steps. For the first time in months, I felt light. Lighter than I ever had, living under the weight of guilt, betrayal, and manipulation. But it didn't stop there. Because some betrayals deserve a public reckoning. That night, Chandler posted a series of photos to the neighborhood Facebook group. Images of the trashed living room, spilled wine, broken furniture, and Kiana's cheap wigs left strewn across my vanity like they belonged there. The caption was simple: "Be careful who you trust in your home. This is what they did to my friend's property while pretending to be family." The post went viral locally. But the real cherry on top came from Camille Lynn. Camille was a well-connected realtor who had once helped me stage a fundraiser at the hospital. When she saw the photos, she reached out immediately. "Is that the Proctor guy who plays at all the local breweries?" she asked. "Yep," I replied. She smiled, I could hear it in her voice. "Not anymore." She contacted every bar, venue, and event space in our area with one message: "Do not book this man. He trashes homes and cons women for their money." Dion's calendar dried up in a week. And as for Rhett Rivers, the ever-loyal bandmate, he posted a public video, full of performative heartbreak, announcing he was cutting ties with Dion. "I didn't know what was really happening," he said. "I don't associate with bad karma. I didn't even have to respond. The world did it for me." Peace didn't come all at once. It came in waves. In quiet mornings without anxiety. In moments where I caught myself smiling for no reason. In the absence of chaos. 3 weeks after Dion and Kiana were evicted, I walked through every room of the house I once called home. The walls still echoed with memories, some beautiful, others brutal. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done holding on to places that had turned into battlegrounds. So with Camille Lynn's help, I listed the house. And it sold in just under a week. A lovely older couple bought it, newly retired, excited to start fresh. As I handed them the keys, I smiled. Not out of bitterness, but because I finally understood something. The house wasn't my home anymore. I was. With the sale finalized, I took a portion of the money and did something I had dreamed about for years but never dared to do. I bought a cozy lakefront cabin upstate. 2 bedrooms. A wraparound deck. Sunsets that looked like watercolor paintings. No noise, no tension, no memories I didn't choose. And then I disappeared. I turned off my phone. Packed a suitcase. And flew to Italy. Bridget Aguilar, my old college roommate, had been living in Florence for 3 years, running an art gallery. When she heard I was coming, she cleared her guest room and stocked her fridge with wine, pasta, and gelato. We spent the month exploring quiet villages, eating everything we could find, and laughing until we cried. One night, as we sat on her rooftop overlooking the city, she asked me, "Do you ever think about him?" I thought for a moment. Then answered, "Not really." And it was the truth. Meanwhile, back home, Dion's life unraveled. Kiana left 2 weeks after the eviction. Vanished in the night, no note, no goodbye. Someone spotted her on a flight to Austin, starting over with another band. Another mark, maybe. Dion was left alone in a cramped studio apartment above a laundromat, where the walls were thin and the dreams were even thinner. His music gigs dried up. His name became a cautionary tale in our community. "Don't trust a proctor," someone had written anonymously on a venue's bathroom wall. Chandler sent me the photo. I didn't respond. Because I had stopped caring about his karma. I was focused on mine. When I returned from Italy, I opened something new. Something real. Something mine. A wellness studio. Small. Intentional. Focused on trauma resilience and recovery, born from everything I had lived through as a nurse and as a woman who had been broken and rebuilt herself piece by piece. It was called Pulse and Peace. It started small, just a handful of clients. But word spread. People came to talk, to cry, to breathe again. And in helping them heal, I healed too. And then came Milo Campbell. He walked into one of my workshops with a Canon camera slung around his neck and the gentlest smile I'd ever seen. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He was calm. We talked over tea. Then coffee. Then long walks around the lake. Milo respected my boundaries. My time. My past. He never tried to overshadow me. He just stood beside me. Steady. Quiet. Solid. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to earn someone's love. It just was. And that was enough. Some people will only love you when they need you. And when they're done, they'll try to discard you like you never mattered. But karma makes sure the story doesn't end there. It gives you the strength to rise, the courage to walk away, and the clarity to know your worth. And if you're lucky, it gives you peace. I stopped looking for home in other people. Because I finally found it in myself. If this story touched you in any way, if you've ever loved someone who didn't love you back, or if you've had to rebuild after betrayal, I see you. Please like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this.